Visiting Wilkes County on business or pleasure? Stay in Wilkesboro at the Holiday Inn Express, Hampton Inn, or Red Roof Inn and Suites. Enjoy Southern hospitality, cozy rooms, and a complimentary breakfast. Explore the mountains and then relax with us. You've earned it. Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Well, good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
I was trying to remember when we met before, and I mentioned to you that with Life in the Carolinas, we had met way back in the day. You had started the vineyard, and you had began that process. But my gosh, things have certainly come a long way. Why don't you tell people who you are and what you're up to?
Okay. Again, my name's Tom Silvey. I grew up outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, in the Cumberland Mountains, and after college, I started working for a large corporation and got moved around quite a bit. And one of my assignments was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you've been to Charlotte lately, it's pretty bustling, but even back 30 years ago, it was still a pretty busy city, and I really missed the mountains and had been looking for a place to get away from Charlotte on the weekends and maybe have a cabin and just a getaway place on the weekends, and had been looking around. I love to snow ski and I love to fly fish, and I said, wow, maybe I could find a place up around Blowing Rock or Valley Crucis and have a little place on the Watauga River and fish, and then teach my grandkids how to snow ski. And again, had been looking for months and months. I knew every back road between Meat Camp and Elk Park, I guess. And one day, a property became available, and it was exactly what I was looking for. It was on the Watauga River, a little 2-bedroom cottage right on the Watauga River. And I called the guy and said, I'm on my way to see it and probably buy it. And by the time I showed up there, about 2 hours later, he was in the parking lot and said, Tom, I hate to tell you, I tried to call you, couldn't reach you, but I just sold this place.
Oh, my.
And he said, but I've got some property in Wilkes County you might want to take a look at. It's I've got 120 acres of riverfront property in the northern part of Wilkes County. I said, well, I've driven all this far, right. Let's take a look at it.
Now, was he in Wilkes? Were you in Wilkes County?
No, I was living in Charlotte.
No, but the land, the cabin that got sold, where was that?
That was Valley Crucis.
Okay, Valley Crucis.
It was in Valley Crucis, yeah. Right. So he said, why don't you follow me to this area called Traphill and look at the property. So I followed him down, and he had 40 acres on one side of the bridge. On the other side of the bridge, I think he had 60 acres. But it's beautiful riverfront property. It's on the east prong of the Roaring River, if you're familiar with the area there, behind the Traphill Library. And there was essentially nothing there except the ruins of an old mill. But I walked the property with him, and on top of the ridge had a beautiful view of the Blue Ridge Parkway and the mountains there. You could see part of a little stone mountain and Green Street. And but it was completely forested. There was a few old logging roads on it, but had a creek running, another small branch. I said, this property has a lot of potential. So I bought the property. It's about 40 acres. But I had to make a deal with my wife. She's from France and not a country girl like me. And she said, I'll go along with this idea, but would you plant a couple of rows of grapes for me to remind me of my home in Alsace, France? Right. I said, sure. Well, being an engineer by degree and trade for many years, I've decided, well, I've got to do a little bit of research here. So I found out that the Surrey Community College had a viticulture program, and they had a seminar coming up on the weekend for people interested in getting into the viticulture business. So we went up, and I went up there with the intent to find out what grapes grow there. Well, I went up there and found out we're in the middle of wine country. And
you didn't know any of that?
Didn't know any of that. Right. And also found out that we were in one of the best wine growing areas, the Yadkin Valley Appalachian, and one of the best wine, and our property is right on the border inside of the Yadkin Valley Appalachian. So my wife says, I started seeing stars after that.
Right.
And so anyway, we started clearing the property. We had it cleared, and then I got transferred to Orlando, Florida. But we hired a person to stay on the property, and we had it timbered, and all the stumps cleared for about 10 acres with the idea of starting to plant. Now, when you plant grapevines, you have to let the soil sit for a while if it's been in forest because of the nasty forest microbes are there, and the microbes that are on your new grapevines, they don't like each other.
Right.
So you have to let the land go sterile for 2 or 3 years and before you plant the grapes. So we cleared about 10 acres and started planting rows of grapevines, and then I tell people it got out of control. So now we have we got about 6 acres of grapevines, about 7 different varieties. We have a wonderful home on top of the hill. We've got rental property, a restaurant, and a small RV park we've just put in about a year and a half ago that holds about 10 or 12 sites. So, like I say, it's morphed out of control from what we originally thought.
I don't know if it had, but I'm going to ask. So your engineering degree and your engineering mind, other than seeing the land, okay, I can visualize this, had any of that prepared you for what you were getting ready to embark upon?
It helped me. I've learned that don't try to reinvent the wheel yourself. There's other people who have done it, and you ought to capitalize on other people's knowledge. So we hired a consultant to help us go wander down this road and make sure that we were doing the right thing. So we used a consultant who basically helped us lay out the rows, where the rows would be, how they would be angled, the direction they would face, the type of trellis system, the varietals of grapes, and he also helped me find a vineyard manager to help take care of things.
Right.
So we used a consultant to help us get to where we are today.
So you approached it like you would any project. Let's get the team together.
Yeah, let's get the people who know what they're doing.
Right. Because this came at were you getting close to retirement at that time, and from a professional standpoint? Because, it's been some years ago, but not that long.
Yeah.
Right?
I was about 8 years away and had already started thinking a little bit about it, and realized my wife and I have lived all over the United States, and she's been in Japan, and I've spent a lot of time in China, and we really love the Carolinas.
Right.
And
that's good.
And especially that area up there around the mountains and streams, and just reminded me of where I grew up, and just love it here, love the people, and we're going to stay here for a long time.
Right. Well, you're fortunate to have that team assembled, and that around you, because your retirement years would be your fingernails would be a lot of dirt under your fingernails if you didn't have that going. So that's great. So you've approached doing something that's now doing really well. We hear lots of good things. I spoke with Thomas Sally. He just couldn't say enough good things about you and your wife and the place and what you've done. And I would imagine you've brought a new spin to Traphill as well. Being in the beverage business, there was a lot of beverage business up there in the past.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the folks up there, I told the story one time that I was talking to some locals about, how will I be accepted? I grew up Southern Baptist, and I know the way Baptists feel about drinking and dancing and alcohol and so forth. And I was talking to them. I said, well, what do you think about the folks around here where they're going to be not happy that I'm up here? And he said, oh, Tom, don't worry about that. All their parents made moonshine. So they don't have a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
But,
and you're right. And you're right close to the library out there, too.
Yeah,
right?
Just right down the hill from the library there.
Yeah, that's great.
And we're not far from Stone Mountain State Park, and we get an awful lot of traffic from the state park. Folks come up there, and after they've done their hike or whatever they've done, looking for a place to eat and relax a little bit. So we get quite a bit of traffic from the state park.
Okay, all right. Well, walk us through what's there now. I remember, I think the tasting room, when I visited years ago, the tasting room had just been finished, and you were working on finishing up the restaurant. But as I said, that's been years ago. So walk us through, what are those amenities people can enjoy when they come?
Okay. So, again, we have a restaurant there, and we have a wine tasting bar. So we do a combination of tasting room and a restaurant area. Mm-hmm. And what's happened since COVID, wine tasting normally used to consist of people coming up to the tasting bar and doing a tasting at the bar.
Right.
But since COVID, people don't do that too often anymore. And because we have a restaurant, people like to be outside on our deck. Mm-hmm. And we also now bring the tastings out to the table, whether it's inside or outside. A lot of people most of our people stay outside because they're right on the river and look over the river. But our tasting scheme has kind of changed a little bit with COVID. Now people like to sit outside on the table, and we bring the tastings to them, as well as their food and dinner and courses. But we have the restaurant, the tasting room. We have 4 rental properties, mm-hmm. 3 of which are just directly on the river. You can sit on the back porch and look down at the river. And then we have a little cabin that's a little bit further down the river, not directly on the river, but maybe 100 yards from the river there. So we've got 4 rentals there.
Do they stay busy?
Stay pretty busy, especially this time of year. Things start picking up. People come up for the fall leaves. And as I mentioned previously, we have a little RV park now. We have about 12 sites, not too far from the tasting room where mm-hmm. we
walking, people can
mm-hmm.
get...
Okay. Yeah, it's just a couple of minute walk from there. And there's a program called Harvest Host, where if you have an RV camper and you join and you boondock, that means you don't need power or water, you can stay at a Harvest Host for free overnight. So we heard about that from some of our other vineyard friends and started entertaining Harvest Host. They would come in. The idea is they stay for free, but they patronize your business.
Oh, sure.
And we got such a good response from that we said, well, and people were coming back and said the parks are filled up. We can't get a place in the park. Of course, this is right after COVID or during COVID. We said, well, why don't we make some more space for those who are willing to pay? And so now we've got a little RV park. We've got a little bit of power and Wi-Fi and so forth. And that's taken off between Harvest Host, and that's both of those have done.
And it's bringing people.
Yeah. We in the tourist business, I've learned this from Thomas Sally. You talk about heads and beds
That's
of
right.
generating revenue. And
right.
So what you want to do is get people to come and stay.
Right.
And
have an experience. When you were talking a moment ago about the tasting, and I remember, because we did a lot of winery stores back in the day, and you would go right up to the bar, and you got all these pours, and you're tasting, and it can be a happy experience after a while. But I like the idea of having it, especially out on the deck. Mm-hmm. I mean, right there, that experience. How many vineyards do we have that have that particular experience of where you can taste the wines, you've got nature all around you? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a special experience.
Well, that's an interesting point you made there, because originally when I bought the property, I had thought about putting our wine tasting room on top of the hill that overlooks the vineyard. And but I started to think, a lot of the vineyards around here have their tasting room on top of the hill that looks out over the vineyard, right?
Right.
And I knew a little bit about business is you need to find your own niche and be a little bit different from the person down the road from you. And I thought, well, what if we could put a tasting room on the river? That would be different from everybody else. And I was able to buy the property across the river from where we thought about putting the tasting room. And after I secured that property, I said, let's do this. Let's put a tasting room and a restaurant right on the river. We've got our rental properties already started there, and just have everything riverside and make it a unique experience that there's not too many like that around.
I bet people love it. I mean, what do people tell you? What do you hear from people working for you? What are they saying that people are saying?
Well, I think it's just the scenery and being right on the river and hearing it, and the soothingness. Right. And I joke a lot of times we have live music, and we bring the music out on the deck, and joke with our management team. I said, I think the people would rather listen to the river than somebody playing music, because most of them come and just really enjoy being on the river. But we mix it up, so we don't play music all the time. But it is very soothing there, and there's hardly anything around you, and so we get a lot of feedback. And our guests like the same thing. They can sit on their back porch and open the door to their rental property and listen to the river all night.
Right. When did you realize you bought the land? Obviously, it spoke to you. It was the right thing to do and the right place to buy, because you were initially just thinking about a place for you and your wife, right? Yeah. That's what you were thinking. I mean, it's turned into this. But what moment was it, or if you remember, when the construction's going, people are starting to come, and you're like, okay, we really did make the right decision?
Oh, that thought crossed my mind several times, especially right after we had built the tasting room and spent a considerable amount of money to build that and get it done. I started thinking to myself, I'm going to be retiring in 3 or 4 years, and I've put a lot of my savings money into this. What was I thinking?
Right.
And anyway, I asked the Lord, give me wisdom here, because I'm not sure this is the right thing, but I'm going to trust you to help us through this thing. And
right.
He has blessed us immensely. And but you're right. I question myself, and I still do sometimes about,
right.
But the thing about it is, I tell people, when you retire, you better have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, or you won't for long. And so it really keeps my wife and I very busy. And now we've got a wonderful staff that works for us. We just got back from Maine, and we visited Canadian Rockies. We're going to Portugal in 2 weeks for about a week. So we're starting to, now that we can move away from it, we've got a good staff in place that we trust and do a good job. And so now we're starting to travel a little bit more and enjoy our golden years.
Doesn't that make it better, though, having this? You've worked hard, yes, and you've had success, yes. You've built this thing, yes. But when you go have those experiences, like talking to people you just met, if people have had a lot of experience, it's more interesting. I think it makes us better.
I tell people, one of the things that I think I really enjoy most about having a business, a winery and a restaurant, are the people that I meet. Right. We've been blessed by so many people with all these different stories that come in and bring their personal insights as to what they've done, accomplished, or what they've been through. And, that's almost a blessing when people come into your lives and bring these stories and experiences. It really makes having the business and pleasurable, because of all the interesting people that come into your lives that you meet, and many of them have continued to be really good friends of ours all over the place, and it's been a really rewarding experience.
Do you think we're better together?
I tell people 95% of the people that we meet are salt of the earth. And they're the other 5% that are but you know what? You take advantage of the 95% and just live with the other 5%.
Right. Well, you got to have something to compare and contrast, right? I mean, it's like, these guys are great, and these guys, well, they're different.
They are what they are, and you can't do anything about it.
No, but having those experiences, though, I've discovered, and we've interviewed and chatted with a lot of people over the years, and it just seems to me like the more encounters we have with people that are a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And traveling, you're going to Portugal. I've always thought that there's nothing more important than going to new places and experiencing new things when it comes to helping us understand that a lot of us around the world, we're pretty much the same. I mean, we may have of course, the language sounds different, which you have that in your with your sweetheart, and you understand that part, and the cultures that we see. There are little subtleties, but everybody wants their family, don't they?
Yeah. That's true. Very true.
What's the future look like?
Probably more travel, and less time at home. I think you start to realize when you get old. We've had such a wonderful experience working on this for, almost a little over 20 years from the time we bought the property back in 2021 to where we are now. It's been a wonderful experience, and I don't think I would trade it for anything. But as you get a little bit older, you start to realize what's important in your life. And the older I get and the more I learn, it's what it really boils down to is family and friends. That's what I think is the reward in life as you get older and older, especially family. So that's kind of our goal, is to try to spend more time as we get older with our children. I've got 9 grandchildren now, and spend more time with them. And
do they come and see you here?
They do. They do. We're looking forward to having them maybe around for Thanksgiving, and they're all different ages, from about 6 years old to 15 years old, and they love to fish. They like to. We have some 4-wheelers and mountain bikes, and I take them arrowhead hunting and just all kinds of things. They keep me pretty busy for a couple of days there.
So when the family comes in, are you, because it sounds like you got a big family, so when they all come together, do you take over the restaurant and just enjoy that, or do you do that up at home? Or
what we do normally is block out our rental property. We have the 4 rentals,
right, and
we have a pretty good sized little apartment in the basement of our new home. So we can handle them all, and we have a little clubhouse on our property. It's called the Party Place, but it's a nice lodge, and we can get about 20 people in there and sit about 15, 18 people in there. So we basically take over our property.
Right. Wow. That's a benefit. How many times a year do you do that?
Probably twice a year.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So families around you, they all come together, so you're having that experience. Just think, if you hadn't did this winery deal, then you'd be renting property somewhere.
That's right.
And look, you got a deal, right?
A really good deal.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another interesting point is when I found the property, I just kind of fell in love with it. Not only did it reminded me of the mountains and the creeks I used to play in growing up in East Tennessee, but I just really felt attached to it. And I always thought I had some Cherokee Indian in me, and my wife, she thought it too a little bit. But she says, "Why don't you do the Ancestry 1, 2, 3 and do a DNA? Let's do a DNA and see if there is any Cherokee, if you do have any Cherokee." Well, I did that, and I don't have hardly any Cherokee at all. But with Ancestry 1, 2, 3, I guess you put in your zip code and it'll show you DNA correlations of people within 100 miles to us. And I did that, and flags started popping up all around me in Traphill.
Oh.
And come to find out that my 5th great grandmother was Rachel Johnson, whose brother Sam was a Revolutionary War hero, Captain Sam Johnson, at the Battle of Kings Mountain.
Look at that.
Anyway, so Captain Sam is my 5th great uncle, I guess.
Well, that's a big uncle. Anyway. That's huge.
So now I find I've got relatives. I go to the Johnson family reunion up at Little Stone Mountain, and
did they accept you when you first showed up?
Yeah. Well, I think they questioned me a little bit, but
I was able to bring the blood test.
I took my paperwork with me to show them that. I am legit.
Well, a lot of people try to, make a claim. So that's great. That's fantastic. I love hearing those stories about how we're a lot of us are connected. I was talking to one fella, and he went through the very same thing, and he said he was really worried because he thought for a moment he'd married his cousin.
Well, somebody told me there was a rule up in the mountains that you could marry somebody with the same last name as long as the family lived 50 miles away.
Well, that's maybe it's 75 now with cars driving faster. Oh my! Well, you've settled right in, haven't you? What a wonderful thing! If I were to if I were to ask you this question years ago, the answer I'm sure is different now because you're already sharing memories about this place. What are some of those memories of you growing up that you feel like you now sense some of those common things here?
I'll tell you an interesting story. I was my father was a Marine and fought on Iwo Jima, Okinawa, 2 Purple Hearts as a Marine on those bloody battles, and came back. And anyway, he was our Boy Scout leader in the Boy Scouts. Mm-hmm. And when your dad is the scoutmaster and a Marine, you don't say ex-Marine because even when you die, you're still a Marine, they say. But anyway, when you're a Marine, one thing they always teach you is don't quit. You can't quit. Whatever you start, you can't quit. So both my brother and I, we ended up both being Eagle Scouts. But we really enjoyed going out on the weekends and looking for arrowheads. And when you're in the Boy Scouts and part of the Order of the Arrow, it's all about Indian lore and so forth. And we just really enjoyed going up in the mountains and looking under rock ledges, caves, looking at river bottoms, looking for arrowheads. We really enjoyed doing that. And when I got up to the property, we discovered there was a little site on the property that it looked like we found a few little arrowheads on, and recently found some pottery shards, which means probably a couple of families, Catawbas, maybe lived there a long time ago. Well, anyway, my mother, this is probably 12 years ago, my mother was suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's, in Knoxville, Tennessee. And she wanted to come see the property. She hadn't seen it. And it was still in early stages. I don't think we'd finished the tasting room, but my brother brought her from Knoxville, and we weren't sure she could make the trip. But yeah, she made the trip all right. Physically, she was fine, but mentally, she was in not good shape. And we were sitting, and she told me, now this is a lady with advanced dementia. Tom, you told me you found some arrowheads on the property. And I said, yeah, Mom, I found maybe 3 or 4, not too many, but I found 2 or 3. She says, do you know how long it's been since your brother and me and the 3 of us went arrowhead? Now, my dad had already passed. I said, Mom, I have no idea how long ago it was. And she says, as best I can recollect, it was probably about 40 years ago was the last time 3 of us went arrowhead hunting together, wow. Which kind of startled me because she couldn't even dial her phone number. And so she said, I think my days are numbered here on the earth, and it'd mean a lot if we could go arrowhead hunting and see if we could find an arrowhead on your property. So I said, okay. So my brother and I took her and brought our wives along, and this little area, it's probably about a little bit larger than this office size here as far as the area here. Normally, if you walk around a little bit, you can find something we say worth putting in your pocket, maybe a little drill point, broken arrowhead, maybe an arrowhead or a little piece of pot or something. And we looked around there for about 30 minutes and didn't find anything. So, this is really bad. And my mother starts walking down the hill a little bit towards a little creek down there. And I was telling my brother, she's not going to find anything down there. That's fill dirt I took out of the hillside to cover a culvert so that we could drive our farm equipment across the little creek there. And she'd been down there about 5 or so minutes, and I literally had my hands to my mouth getting ready, as we would say in the mountains, holler at her.
Right.
And before I could get the words out of my mouth, she says, boys, come look what I found. And we walked down to where she is, and she's not only found an arrowhead, she's found a flawless spear point. It's flawless, laying right on top of our we call it a gator path where we drive all our equipment, laying like somebody laid that down for her. And we're walking back up to get in the truck. My brother comes up to me out of hearing range. Hey, Tom, did you put that down there for her? I said, that's a good idea. I never thought about that. Now, I do now. Sometimes when my grandkids come up, they don't find anything. I might throw one out there, but I said, no, I didn't put that down there. I don't have anything that good anyway. So we get in the car, we get in the truck, and my mom says, boys and girls, let me tell you something. I said a prayer to the Lord driving over here. I said, Lord, before you take me home, let me find one more arrowhead. And anyway, it was flawless, like it was made yesterday. Anyway, She passed not too long after that, but I thought I'd get an archaeologist to look at that and maybe date it, tell me maybe how old it was, what kind of point it was. So I sent a picture of it to the state archaeologist. Said, Mr. Silvey, that's a Kirch point associated with the Paleolithic era. I said, well, what the heck does that mean? He says, that was made by hunter-gatherers before there were even Indians. And said it's 8,000 to 10,000 years old. Wow. I said, well, thank you very much for that information, and I appreciate that. Anyway, I think the Lord answered her prayers that a flawless 8,000-year-old spear point laying right on top of the road where I drive my equipment every day. I think the Lord answered her prayers. And we have a shrine down there on the property now where she found that. There's a cross with a story and a picture of her and what happened there. And a lot of our guests that come, I tell them the story, and it's just a 5-minute walk till they can see it. But I just think it's incredible. And people come to see us, and I show them the point there that it's just an amazing story, but it follows back on what you said. Experiences we have when we're young, and in some cases maybe repeat themselves when you get older.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's a great story, Tom. Once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout, right? Like a Marine, you never stops.
Do a good turn daily.
Yeah. What a wonderful story about your family and your life. And the winery is a beautiful story of how that came about. But it is all about the people, right?
Yeah,
it's always about the humans. And, well, Tom, it's been great spending time with you. Look forward to a visit on the property.
Thanks
out
for
there.
The invite. I appreciate it.
And this has been great. Can't wait to meet your wife again. I remember we actually had a glass of your wine in the tasting room. Yeah. So that was pre the issues we talked about earlier. Well, great. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
glad you're
having
in
me.
Wilkes County.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.